What's up, hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Pod Snipe Celly. Dan Bradley and Joel Fernino. I can't even speak right now.
Fernina.
That's
a fun way to pronounce my last name. I like that.
We're really struggling through this Tuesday today. It was another long day of work. Still more work to do after the pod tonight.
Jeez, really?
This back-to-back weeks of doing that. I need to get out of this habit and not let it be a trend. But yeah, let's try that open again here. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pod Snipe Celly. Dan Bradley, Joel Fernino coming at you on a Tuesday night. Joel, how you doing tonight, my friend?
I'm good. I scootered home in the rain, so that was fun.
Like literally with a scooter?
Yeah, like the electric scooters, like
yeah,
the Lime scooter and everything. Yeah. So perks of Uber, they own Lime, so I get a discount on those things.
I guess there's that. You have such an unlimited amount of perks working with Uber.
It is
like
right
it's
nice.
Insane.
Everyone order from Uber Eats. DoorDash sucks. Anyway. But I'm good,
Joel,
man.
we have once again a very busy show tonight. We are continuing our division preview series, and tonight we are moving on to our third show of the season, where we will be covering the Atlantic Division, not the Pacific, as I fumbled the tag on last week's show. It's the Atlantic Division,
the other ocean, the colder ocean, the one where the Titanic is.
I got my oceans right this week, so
you did.
We naturally have to start off with the historically good Boston Bruins, who absolutely collapsed. An NHL record 65, 12, and 5. League best 135 points. Outstanding regular season. They look like world beaters. And then they blew a 3-1 series lead to lose in Game 7 of the first round to Florida. And their offseason was tumultuous, is the best word I can think of to describe everything they had to go through this offseason.
My favorite thing that described their offseason was just whoever has seen Pulp Fiction, the Pulp Fiction meme of John Travolta just standing there looking around, and it literally just was captioned the Boston Bruins center room. Yeah, exactly.
That's the best impression of it I can do.
It was literally right after, and you know what? I totally agree with Joey. Couldn't happen to a better team. Oh, God, their misery is my happiness.
For a team that has been really, I would say, as dominant over the last decade as Boston has been, and it only resulted in the one
a Stanley Cup appearance, only to lose to the Blues.
I guess two appearances, losing to the Blues, and then
the last decade, I guess.
Played to Chicago.
To us, that seems like forever ago. That literally was a decade ago.
But you look at how this team has played over the last decade.
I don't like to forget about that one.
I bet you don't.
17 seconds, my friend. 17 seconds.
One of the more dominant franchises in the sport. Last season kind of felt like the culmination of all of that, where it was we're putting absolutely everything. I don't have to look for cups. It's right there.
It is. It is signed by a general manager of a team that's never won a Stanley Cup. Anywho. See, Joey still loves you. We all love you.
I appreciate you, Joey. We'll figure out later.
You know what? Fair. Finish your thought.
Looking at the offseason, and in particular the departures, because there were some names that were brought in, but you look at a team that this offseason lost Patrice Bergeron, arguably the best defensive forward ever to play the game, and probably the best 200-foot player.
I wouldn't even argue it, to be honest with you.
You lose him. You lose David Krejci, who has been kind of the Robin to Patrice Bergeron's Superman for much of his time with the Bruins.
Wait, what? You
like the 1A, 1B center.
You mean Batman or his Robin to his Batman?
Did I say Robin to Superman?
You did.
Good Lord, I'm struggling tonight.
It's okay. I understood the reference, but for any of you out there that are not at all a comic book nerd. I had to clarify that.
No, I appreciate you calling me on my nonsense here. Trying to run a smart sounding hockey show, and
it was
two big whiffs in the first 5 minutes of the show. So
Krejci was the Iron Man to Bergeron's Captain America. Let's go with that.
You go with that.
Yeah.
As if that wasn't enough, Taylor Hall out the door. Tyler Bertuzzi out the door. Dmitry Orlov out the door. Nick Foligno out the door. Garnet Hathaway, Connor Clifton, Thomas Nozick.
That you have no team.
They lost, no joke, half their roster is gone. And with the draft picks that they have traded, they really don't have a ton of prospects who are coming up through the ranks, ready to be a full-time NHLer this season to fill in those roles. Now, they were able to bring in Milan Lucic, returning to Boston.
But
added Kevin Shattenkirk, added JVR, added Morgan Geekie. But that is
the only
lot of talent.
Yeah, I mean,
the only one star power leagues.
The only one you really added in there that's not, very much aging is Morgan Geekie, and I guess in a way JVR. But you said JVR, right? They added
Juice Henry. Yep.
Yeah.
So the thing with Geekie is
he is aging too. I'm thinking TVR. He's still younger.
Trevor is the younger.
Yeah. They basically said, let's just throw together a bunch of mid-30 guys whose names used to carry star power and see what happens.
Yeah, see if you can get some extra weight there. But Morgan Geekie, I think the Bruins are really going to count on him a lot to kind of put up or shut up. This will be his technically fourth full season in the league, but really more like his third. But at 25, this is now his third team in the last 4 years. Kind of looking for a home, kind of looking for where is the place that he's going to get his big deal and stay for the rest of his career. This could be really a big, big season for Geekie, or it could be just an utter collapse with the lack of leadership in the Bruins room. Because you think not only that, but after losing Joey nail on the head there, leadership they lost is killer. It's
I agree with his take here. It really is kind of what we started doing towards the tail end. We started bringing aging, not old guys, but we were bringing in aging guys to just be like, look, they used to have star power. They worked with the chemo team and after that was it. So we've seen that's the thing. Joey and I have seen how that story ends, and it doesn't end very well.
It's not pretty.
No.
So Joel, I want to ask you, with that first round playoff loss, did the cup window slam shut for Boston officially, or do they still have enough in the tank to keep the window open a little bit longer?
I know I was so very wrong last year about saying, the Bruins are going to fall. The wheels are totally going to fall off. It's over. They're not making the playoffs.
We whipped on that one hard.
We went from calling that they were not going to make the playoffs to they set a regular season wins record. But with all that said, I do think that window basically slammed shut. When you lose your captain in Patrice Bergeron, when you lose one of your workhorses who's been with you for the Stanley Cup you did win and the other couple cups you made it to, David Krejci, and then like you said, you mentioned just that mass exodus of talent. Tyler Bertuzzi was their young up and coming star. Taylor Hall obviously was still very good. He's still got a lot of good hockey left in him. You can't just get rid of that kind of talent and expect the Dmitry Orlov. You can't have that mass exodus of talent and expect that window to not be, maybe not completely shut, but pretty damn close to shut.
It certainly closed a lot from where it was at this time last year.
To me, and look, this division isn't the strongest in the East, in my opinion. I think we all know that. But the talent that is in this division that they have to contend with. That's why, yeah, it's hard to bet against the Bruins just because, like you mentioned, the winning culture they've had over the last decade plus. All these players, they do still have the superstars in David Pastrnak, and
Brad Marchand.
Like they still have both of them.
Charlie McAvoy.
Right, Charlie McAvoy, exactly. Like they have the star power that's still there, but you cut the star power more than in half. And to me, like the depth was one of the biggest things that scared you about them. And yes, they do have Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman back there in the pipe, between the pipes. What will they do? I think I think can they have a repeat season of just being incredible? Then I would say, yeah, I could see them not contending for the cup. They're not winning the cup.
Yeah.
But that's what you say, is their cup window closed? That's different from is their playoff window closed? Playoff window, no. I think it's hard to bet against the Bruins, and I think like there's definitely scenarios, like I just said, if Swayman and Ullmark can actually like keep up that pace, that's a huge thing that could see them, somehow sneak their way into the playoffs. But cup, no. They
a team
have enough right now.
They're still deep enough defensively to be, and especially with the goaltending tandem of Swayman and Ullmark, like that's a very, very good goaltending tandem. Might be the best pairing in the league. I'd really have to sit and think about who's got it better. That said, I think the loss of Orlov is going to be really big. What did I say on this show when the Bruins traded for Orlov last season? If you remember, I said he was the perfect defenseman for the Bruins to go out and get to add some depth to that team. Like he everything he does is such a good fit for their system, and it showed. And that's why he got a boatload of money to go play for Carolina, and that's probably where he's going to finish out his career. Boston, as you'll see when we get to our end of show standings prediction, they're not going to be in the top spot. They're not winning the division next year. It's going to be a matter of how far and how hard will they drop.
I'll tease it now. They might not even be in the top 3 for me.
Entirely possible. Let's move on here so we don't end up talking about Boston the whole show here. We got to get to Tampa Bay.
Please don't make me do that.
Who finished second in the Atlantic last year, 50, 21, and 11. Good for 111 points. They finally got out of the first round. They beat Tampa Bay in 6, exercised the demons, and then immediately crash and burn, losing 4-1 to Florida in the second round, very nearly getting swept out of that series. Another interesting offseason there, more departures than additions.
I disagree.
No, I mean, Ryan O'Reilly, that's a pretty big loss.
That's a big loss, but he ain't getting any younger, and he has definitely been struggling to stay healthy lately, too.
Michael Bunting, Luke Shen, Justin Holl, Alex Kerfoot, Zach Aston-Reese, Noel Acharyan. Oh, yeah, as if all of that wasn't enough, you also lose Kyle Dubas, your general manager, parting ways with him and bringing in Brad Treliving.
Well, let's be honest. Their front office pushed Kyle Dubas out of there.
Yeah, it kind of did.
I think we can read I think we can see the forest through the trees there.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we were just talking about it. Boston loses Tyler Bertuzzi. Where does he go? To Toronto. That's a huge addition for them.
The biggest get of their offseason.
Not so much. The biggest sleeper get of their offseason is Max Domi.
And that's a solid get as well. Ryan Reeves, because of course they needed to add
some sandpaper
on the fourth line. And then, oh, by the way, just for kicks, as if they didn't already try and get all of their offense from the blue line, added John Klingberg, who, when he is healthy and on his game, is one of the better offensive defensemen in the league. But
can't play defense to save
can't play defense. And at Wild fans, we got to see that one firsthand last year, where it's like he will make these spectacular plays. He'll have a 3-point night, and he'll be a -2 and the Wild will somehow pull out a 5-4 victory or something like that. I felt a weird get. I thought if they could have also landed Orlov, that would have been another really nice get, because again, not only are you, as you mentioned with Bertuzzi, taking him away from Boston, but he would have done far more, I think, to fix the blue line issues that the Leafs have had over the last couple of years than what Klingberg can do. Heading into next season, though, on paper, I was just looking at Montreal and a news thing that popped up because of a trade that they made earlier today, which we will get to here shortly. But for the Leafs, they're kind of getting to the point where it is, okay, now that you got out of the first round, how do you build on that? Where do you go from here? You finally got over the hump. Now you need to put it together and make a deep run, because this offseason, and Bertuzzi and Domi, both on 1-year deals. Nylander wants to stay. He's in the last year of his deal. Brody, Klingberg, Giordano, Samsonov, all on expiring deals. Not to mention Jake Muzzin, who LTIR candidate. You've got a lot of guys who are kind of in the last year of their deal here, and I would think the last thing that they would want is to end up in the situation like Boston, where all of their big names have left. They don't have the guys in the pipeline to call up to replace those guys, and just kind of end up stuck for the next couple of years while they try and, Tavares to age out.
I agree, but I think, and I feel like I've said this the last couple of years about the Leafs, but now that they finally, I guess, got over the hump and got to the second round, not that that's kind of a low bar, at least for your winning organizations.
I can't say much about that bar either, because my Wild still have to clear it too. So
that's not true. You get to the second round a decent amount. It's just after that.
Yeah, when did the Wild last make it to the second round of the playoffs?
2015.
I actually have to look it up to think about it.
No, wait. It was after that, right? We weren't the last one to knock you out of the second round.
I think you were. I really think you were.
Really?
Yeah. The let's see here.
I thought maybe like.
Yeah, 2015.
No, it would be 2015. Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
Hi.
So yeah, been a while.
As if you didn't hate us enough.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying though. So all those years of the curse, quote unquote, they finally break said low bar curse. We'll go with it. And like they in the division, they made the most moves. In my opinion, they added the most. I get it. Maybe what left is still outweighing what came in, but what came in to me is the strongest addition of any other team in the division. A lot of the teams, a lot of the other teams,
maybe one or two.
Well, we'll see. I'm curious. I've gone through it personally. I'd say Toronto added the best, but I guess it kind of depends. I know we got Maple. Wow, Mateo with a hot take. The Maple Leafs will miss the playoffs. I'm going to have to say I totally disagree, but here's what I was trying to get to is that you brought up all those defensemen. You brought up everyone on the, expiring contracts. The signings they made, Klingberg, obviously, or like still having a lot of those kind of older defensemen in there, bringing in like a Martin Jones. Like, again, they kind of are guilty of bringing in names that held a little bit of star power at a time. So to me, this is just another, like, and again, their front office, who the hell knows what they're doing at this point. But if this year does not go as planned and they either don't make it out of the first round or get knocked out in the second round again, it's time. It is time to blow things up, because you don't want to just consistently be stuck in purgatory. No offense, like the Wild.
We've been there, and
you consistently will make the playoffs.
We're getting to that point where it's okay. You bought out Parise Suter. The window is going to open. You can see the vision, but
right.
Now,
in this case, though, until now, and I would even say not even to the caliber of the Maple Leafs, you guys haven't had the superstar power that the Maple Leafs have had over the last 5+ years.
I mean,
look, Kaprizov is amazing, but Matthews is still much better than him. That's
better.
Just a fact.
Yes, I wouldn't quite say much. Definitely the better goal scorer, but it's close. And again, the problem is you're comparing a center to a winger. That's never going to be a great comparison.
Regardless, again, okay. Either way, no offense. If I'm taking one or the other,
I'm not taking offense. I'm just making sure that.
But I'm saying,
put some respect on my boy's name.
I love Kaprizov. All right. If I were to ever buy a Wild jersey, it's his. I probably never would, but if I ever had to,
you'd get him or you'd get Koivu. You like Koivu a lot.
No, I liked Parise a lot.
Yeah, I guess I like Parise more.
But that's kind of where that's at to me. Like, I think what they did is load up for another push, another potential first seed in the Atlantic Division, and another push. Like, okay, we got over the hump. Yes, we lost quite a bit of players that, definitely made a bit of an impact in that run last year. But we still added arguably comparable talent where they left. And I think, and again, they're still rolling with the best defense is a good offense. They're still rolling with that, I guess. But if they're going to roll with it, then they clearly are leaning headfirst into it, and that's fine. I think it can work, at least in the regular season. But again, if things go the same way they've gone, I'm being realistic. They blow things up. They trade away.
Their goaltending situation, in particular, is I think the biggest one here. And you're right. I do think, blow it up after this year if it doesn't come together. But Ilya Samsonov, good when he's healthy, but has had problems staying healthy.
Yeah.
You bring in Martin Jones, it doesn't do a whole lot for me. I think he's just insurance. He's probably going to spend most of the year, I would think, at with the Marlies. Joseph Woll is the one that really is a wild card for me. Played reasonably well, all things considered, in the playoffs, and looks like he can be the guy that they ultimately hand the reins to if things continue to go well over the next couple of years. I do think he should be pushing for a ton of starts. But you also have Matt Murray in there who...
he ain't going to be there long.
Well, here's the thing. He's on injured reserve right now, and he's helping them by being on injured reserve to fit under the cap. When he comes back, they're screwed.
Right.
Like they really are. And he claimed that he was ready to play in the playoffs last year if need be. Yep. And then without taking any NHL action, without having a practice, is already back to being LTIR eligible.
Right.
So something weird is going on there. I don't know what. I don't like to speculate, especially when it's a head injury. He's dealing with long-term effects of a concussion, which can take a very, very long time to deal with. You don't mess with concussions.
Especially when you're a goaltender. Corey Crawford's career got cut short because of it.
Yes.
It's the same thing. To add to the drama, I'm glad Mateo brought this up. I wanted to bring this up before we moved on. To add to the drama, you got to figure out what's going on with William Nylander.
Yes.
And I agree with him. I think if they don't figure out Nylander, that will add to the drama to it already defensively inept team that has one solid goalie. Right. Exactly. And that's a good,
right.
My thing, and I agree with him, is that I read on, where did I read it? The Hockey News. I agree with their take, the Hockey News' take, that if he doesn't have a contract coming out of training camp, which is getting ready to start
right now, pretty much, starting.
So if he doesn't get a contract with them coming out of camp, to me, that's almost certainly he's going to get traded at the deadline, because new GM Tree Living, his name's so fun to say. He ain't going to let someone like Will Nylander walk for nothing. That'd be stupid. Again, I don't know what else the puppet masters in their front office are doing with this new GM now. I guess I don't know. Anything can happen with Toronto. Their whole thing runs a little odd to me, but that's going to add to the drama. And I think I'm wondering.
There could be some.
Go ahead.
Some gamesmanship potentially from the Nylander camp here at play, because Nylander does have a 10-team no-trade list. So that could come into play as he's looking, hey, who potentially has the most cap room and could afford me, so that if Toronto does decide to move on, I'm going to make it as difficult for them to put that hand down. He's not going to Chicago unless Chicago is retaining salary for somebody else to get him. It's not going to happen.
We have all the cap room in the world.
That's what I'm saying. You will be a retention move. It will be a paper move. It will be like when Ryan O'Reilly was a member of the Wild for all of 2 minutes last year.
Sounds like you're just scared.
Yeah, Mateo. That's a 31-team no trade contract with his contract ask. Yeah,
that's honestly
just about.
I don't want to pay that money to Nylander. I mean, yeah, he'd be fun to have, but we need to save that.
And
money
he would be fun.
Bedard.
I was going to say he would be fun to see along Connor Bedard, but yeah,
I'd rather save that cap space for when we have to pay him in 3 years.
Yeah, you know who is going to find a way to pay him? The Tampa Bay Lightning, because they always find a way, somehow, some way, to bring in somebody at the deadline, and they have $80 million over the cap. They've doubled whatever the cap limit is, and somehow are still under it. It's amazing how they find a way to pull off the trades that they pull off every year and still keep a competitive roster. It blows my mind. Tampa Bay finished third.
Drafting and scouting, my guy. Drafting and scouting.
You're exactly right, which is really impressive with all the picks that they've given up over the years to bring guys in.
Also, coaching. John Cooper is an incredible coach.
Yeah, we were talking last week about Rod Brindamore on your top 5 coaches list. You've got to have John Cooper in that top 5 as well.
Oh, yeah.
And all Cooper's done is win at every level throughout the way up. And continues to be a big part of the reason why Tampa is so good. They had a lot of injuries last year, still finished third, just shy of 100 points, ended up on 98. They did lose in the first round to Toronto, but after 3 consecutive Stanley Cup Final appearances,
they played a lot of hockey
and
they're
2
tired.
wins. Yeah, they were gassed, and last year kind of looked like the year of 3 cups in 3 years, with 3 cup appearances, 2 wins in those 3 years. It took a toll. Now, with a longer offseason than what they've had, Tampa Bay is going to be really good. They didn't have a whole lot of roster shakeup over the offseason. The big departures were Alex Killorn, Brian Elliott, and Ian Cole. So your backup goaltender, a middle 6 to bottom 6 forward, and a bottom pairing defenseman.
Yep.
They also brought in Connor Sherry,
that's pretty
Jonas Johansson to be their backup goaltender, which that could get really ugly. I think they're going to be in the market for another backup goaltender here before too much longer.
A move I love is bringing in Calvin DeHaan.
Yes,
that's a solid depth D-man move for a team that was already pretty solid on the blue line already. Ooh, I want to see Calvin DeHaan
and they have
together.
That would be really interesting, especially because they were able to get him like on a vet minimum type of deal. He wanted to go play where he had a shot to win again.
He's got health issues, and he's probably doesn't have many years left. So
he's probably bottom pairing with Bogosian, just because he plays on the same side as Hedman and Sergachev, so he wouldn't really be on the ice with those guys very much, if at all.
He wasn't here long, but I loved him when he was here. He's just
that's a guy,
solid player.
Yeah, and all he does is just hit and block shots, especially getting in shooting lanes, making life a nightmare for everybody who tries to play in front of the net.
He's smart with the puck too in his own net.
Yes,
and his own zone too. That's a big thing. But he gets to join the likes of, like I said, Victor Hedman and Mikhail Sergachev. The Lightning are weird to me. I don't know. Like that. They could rip off as long as they stay healthy. They could, which we have to assume. We assume that for all these episodes.
Yep.
They could go nuts and take first in the Atlantic. They could take third. They can just completely disappoint and hit a wild card. Like it's kind of all they will make the playoffs. That's obvious, but it's just, I don't know. It's weird. I get it. They had a lot out of their tank was pretty much on empty last year. And even still, they gave Toronto a run for their money in that first round, but I don't know. I don't know what to think about the Lightning this year.
The big question marks for me for Tampa Bay are, what are you going to get from Anthony Cirelli if he's able to stay healthy? And what happens with the guys that you brought in with some pretty big trades over the last couple of years, that being Brandon Hagel and Tanner Jeannot? Because Jeannot did not quite look comfortable in Tampa Bay, and they paid a king's ransom to go get him. Hagel, quite a bit more success, but still not.
They paid him. He got paid. I'm glad my boy Hagel got paid.
And good for him. We're always about players go get that money, especially in a league where, the top paid player in your league would be about the 40th, 50th highest paid player in the NFL, the top 35 paid player in the NBA, not even top 50 MLB. Like, go get your money by all means.
Right.
Those two guys at three, really, I guess, if you include Cirelli, but Jeannot and Hagel in particular need to be big time contributors for Tampa Bay if they're going to be back in playoff contention. Not competing for the playoffs, but pushing for a deep playoff run. Because to me, as long as you have a healthy Andrei Vasilevsky, you're in good shape. He is still, for me, the number one goaltender in the league, but Sorokin, Shesterkin, they're close. They're nipping at his heels. To the Florida Panthers, who
the darlings of the playoffs last year.
Miraculous playoff run. They got in on the literal last day of the regular season, sneaking in by 1 point over the Buffalo Sabres. Down 3-1 to the historically good Boston Bruins. Rallied to win 2 games on the road, win that series. They beat the heavily favored Toronto Maple Leafs. They beat the heavily favored Carolina Hurricanes. But they ran out of gas as they got to the finish line. The Vegas Golden Knights.
Met the very deep Vegas Golden Knights.
Yes. They were deep and they were healthy. And Florida, as we saw the offseason injury report, was not. You had Matthew Tkachuk playing through a broken sternum. Aaron Ekblad out, needed surgery. They also had Brendan Montour was out and needed some time off. You sent a video today, though, of Montour doing some off-ice training.
It looks like he's far closer. Early. Yeah,
he's far closer to coming back than Ekblad from what we've seen and heard.
Right.
Ekblad,
December?
Yeah, he's looking at a December or maybe even a January return, which is a good chunk of the season to miss. And not only that, but to come back in that middle of the season stretch where everybody's just kind of in a funk. It could be the type of thing that sparks things for the Panthers, getting everybody healthy, but to lose a guy like Ekblad for that long, that could really put him behind the 8 ball early. I do think Florida is headed for a playoff appearance next season, but I think because of the potential for a slower start and how much catch-up they'll have to play, I don't think they're going to be the division winner when all is said and done.
And that is where we disagree. Now, no. Do I think they're going to win the division? I'm not. I'll give it away right now. No, I'm not picking them to win the division. But I think despite Ekblad being out till, let's say, December, I think they're going to build off that crazy Cinderella run that they had. Everyone's healthy outside of Montour and Ekblad. Montour, after watching that video, he could be back as early as late October, early November, based on looking at that video. Like he's raring and ready to go. And to me too, like you didn't add a full 100% replacement to, take Ekblad's spot while he's gone. But I do really like that Oliver Ekman-Larsson addition.
That was a big one.
It was huge. Along with Dmitry Kulikov, Mikko Mikkola, who was one of the higher touted trades that the Rangers made, right? Last year.
And you know what the best part of them getting Oliver Ekman-Larsson is? They didn't have to take on his garbage contract.
Right.
He was bought out, so they got him for way cheaper than what he otherwise would have been.
So, like, to me, those three combined is almost enough to soften the blow of not having Ekblad for the first couple of months of the season. It gives, I think that obviously they have to step up. If they don't, we're having a different conversation. But as long as they step up, like I know that those three guys can, that gives Ekblad some time to not have to rush his ass back. So then when you do get him back, you can pretty much guarantee, okay, he's good to go. And now they're a force.
Right.
Last year, like you said, they limped their way into the playoffs, and that's all you need to do. We always say that's why hockey's so fun. All you got to do is just get in. You're in the dance, you got a chance. That rhymed, and I am very proud of myself.
You came up with that one on the spot?
Yeah.
I'm impressed. That's a good one.
I know.
But, pat yourself on the back for that one. I do want to bring up a couple of other departures here because there were some big ones. Eric Stahl, Mark Stahl, Anthony Duclair, Radko Gudas, and of course we have to mention Alex Lyon.
Alex Lyon, yep. That's a big departure.
It is. But
he played pretty well.
As Mateo just brought up, Spencer Knight is back. Very, very happy for him that he is back. He was in the player assistance program, was really struggling with obsessive compulsive disorder, and was dealing with having to wash your hands over and over and over and over again and not being able to stop. And it was to the point where, he couldn't concentrate on hockey at all. So very glad that he was able to take the time away, get the help that he needs. And it sounds like he's going to be back here. I'm going to need you to jog my memory on that quote from Tkachuk about the Bruins. I don't remember that one.
It was something about it was something about how no one picked them to win the series. I remember it being awesome, and that was what really made me start really liking Tkachuk. But yeah. If you could, Mateo, type that out, we can post it up here because I can't remember exactly word for word what he said. But yeah, man, I don't know. I think they're gonna be good. I think they're gonna build off what they did last year. That's a lot of good confidence build right there. We backed our way into the playoffs and then made some loud noise. So they're gonna build off that.
If you can get somewhere between 55 to 63, 64 games of playoff Sergei Bobrovsky, Florida's going to be a wagon. Right. If Spencer Knight returns to the form that he showed before all of the OCD complications, Spencer Knight is one of the best young goaltenders in the league when he's on his game.
Yep.
So
that's
Florida absolutely could be there. I think, as you mentioned, though, the only thing is what kind of start do they have? And you're a little higher on their early start than I am. But that's a team that can really do some damage come playoffs.
Yep.
This is the point where we get to the teams that didn't make the playoffs last year, and we start with the Buffalo Sabres, who just I couldn't have been any closer, missed by a point.
I can tell you right now, if that ain't happening this year, they are making the playoffs.
12 seasons they have missed the playoffs. 2011 was the last time that they were in.
Yeah.
I did not know you, Joel, the last time Buffalo was a playoff team.
2011. Yep, I was in high school.
It was August of 2012 was when I met you.
and this is where we all get to speculate where they will. Mateo thinks they'll take second in the division. I think that might be a little high, but I am all in on the Buffalo train.
I will say right now, I had a very tough time trying to decide whether or not I was going to give Buffalo home ice in the first round.
I did too. Well, you'll see where I ended up putting them. And quite frankly, I could see them one spot higher than I did put them. So we'll see. But I am all in. They are. We talked about it. Like we were talking about the New Jersey Devils. We were talking about how they are built and they are here and they are ready to go. That's the step I look for the Sabres to take this year.
They had. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say. I mean, like you had the breakouts that they needed last year. Tage Thompson is a bona fide superstar. I think we all kind of know that. I could see him.
So Mateo did just send me the quote here, and I hadn't seen this, so this is new to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Tkachuk was because this was from today. Matthew Tkachuk,
I was thinking during the playoffs.
NHL team he's most excited to watch next season via ESPN. He says, quote, "I'm excited to see what Boston does after their season last year, how they follow that one up." Yeah, that's pretty good.
All right, I'm more of a Matthew Tkachuk fan than I already was.
Stop making me like Matthew Tkachuk. Like I have hated him since he completely wrecked Matt Dumba's shoulder and completely changed the trajectory of his career. I can't like Tkachuk, and he keeps doing stuff to make me try and like him, and it's so frustrating.
Yep, but
I very nearly wore the Dumba jersey knowing we were going to end up talking about Tkachuk tonight.
You should have.
I should have. It's too warm for that though. It's still. I guess it's down to 69. Nice, but it's been in the 80s here during the days, so it's still generally too warm in the apartment to be wearing hockey jerseys. But I have to get used to that.
Sweaters, Dan. They're called sweaters.
You're right. $1.
Actually, hold on. I like this. He is Brad Marchand, but likable. He's not licking people's faces.
See, here's the problem. Brad Marchand is becoming extremely likable too. If you
So,
follow him on Twitter,
I can't actually disagree. He kind of is.
he's becoming so likable, and it's so frustrating.
But anyway, back to Buffalo.
Back to Buffalo.
Tage Thompson specifically. When you go off and you have arrived with a 47 goals and 47 assists season, 94 points, like he's here. He's their Jack Hughes. I mean, Jack Hughes is going to be probably better, but regardless.
But Thompson is also bigger. Like what Hughes has in speed, Thompson has in size.
Exactly. I loved watching what he did. I think I actually. Oh my God, I remember one of my first Joel Stradamus moments of last year. We were on our podcast, and I said, I'm calling a Tage Thompson hat trick tonight. And I decided to not bet money on it because he put up 4 goals that same night.
Yep.
I could have won. Let's just say I could have taken a long vacation.
It would have been a very, very nice hit.
Exactly. But along with him, you got Owen Power coming up. That's going to be huge. Rasmus Dahlin is finally looking like the first overall pick that he was. That's on the defensive side. Also, I just noticed too. Also, by the way, Alex Tuck.
Yep.
I mean, that's a huge addition for them. Not to mention,
again, if he's healthy, which
I get it, but if we're assuming health, remember?
Right? Assuming health, it's a good roster.
Also, a couple wild in here too. Jordan Greenway and Tyson Jost. Obviously, Dylan Cousins was pretty good last year.
But they've got some young guys coming up too. JJ Paterka, Peyton Krebs. Their goaltending tandem, Devin Levi and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Those guys have so much raw talent. Levi in particular, Levi's going to be their long-term starter, but UPL, really, really good with tandem goaltender there as well. Not quite to Swayman Ullmark levels, but I think give it a couple of years. That's kind of the expectation in Buffalo of what those two can be. This is just looking across over at where Boston is at right now.
How could I forget Eric Johnson is with them now?
Yeah, that was probably their biggest get of the offseason, and someone who has been around the league for a long time, has the experience of winning a cup, a good leader to, you have all these young guys who are bursting with potential.
Yep.
But somebody who can kind of be that presence in the room and say, hey, this is what needs to happen for us to be not only a team that knocks on the door of the playoffs, but kicks the door in and says, we're here and we're taking this thing. Buffalo has all the talent in the world to do it, which is not something that we've necessarily been able to say about Buffalo for
they've
the
been
last decade.
They've been a laughing stock from the league for, like you said, about the last decade. I mean, the Jack Eichel debacle, we thought, oh my God, like this franchise is just going to go up in flames now, but no, they've managed to come out of that pretty well off. I mean, that trade helped them out. Who'd they take with the picks they got for Jack Eichel?
That's a great question.
Was Owen Power one of them?
No.
Okay.
Let's see here. So they got Peyton Krebs and Alex Tuck were the players that they've got. Right. And then Noah Ostlund was the player that they drafted with the 2022 first round pick.
Right.
And then had a second rounder this year. This article doesn't yet say.
I don't even know how I could forget good old Henry Yoki-Haru is still over there too. Like they got some depth too, along with the young, like they're here, or that I expect them to break out hugely. And I guess the message to Sabres fans would be like, if they don't absolutely go nuts and be absolutely outstanding and they don't take the 2 seed or even the 3 seed, I don't think you have anything to worry about.
So that second round pick that Buffalo got in that trade, they flipped to Minnesota from the Jordan Greenway trade. So that actually turned into Riley Haight.
Oh.
So
also, I know we're talking speculation, but one of the top teams in the sweepstakes to where Patrick Kane might sign, Buffalo is up there because it's the hometown thing. So if they add someone like Patrick Kane too, yeah, they mean business. I'm not going to lie to you. Real quick, small tangent while you choke. I don't really ever buy into the whole, the hometown kid's going to go home thing. But the thing is out of all the teams that you've heard the speculation that Patrick Kane might sign with once he's fully recovered from that hip surgery, is Buffalo is still one of the top ones. I've seen Vegas. I've seen Carolina. But I don't know, man. I think that's one of those, quote, hometown kids going home things that could definitely happen because the Sabres window is absolutely opening. And that's enticing for someone like Patrick Kane, who's, starting to get towards the end of his career.
There's a different team that I think is more likely to sign Patrick Kane.
I also forgot to mention Dallas. Is that who you're going to say?
No.
Oh, okay. Who?
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Oh, no.
We'll get to that.
No, I don't want that. I know where
we'll get to that.
I didn't mention them on purpose in the list of teams I was naming.
We'll get there.
No, we won't.
I think Buffalo, with the group that they have, they really need to make the push on their own this year. And if they're going to bring in a vet at the deadline, next year would be the year to do it. Not this year. I think that's giving up on some assets too early.
I'm not saying they're not bringing him in at the deadline. He's a free agent.
Or you're right, but still, I don't think you bring in a vet. I think you let the young guys figure it out. Because to me, that's part of the issue that the Rangers had last year was once they brought in Patrick Kane, then you're bumping Kako or Lafreniere out of your top 6, and you need those guys to be developing.
I guess my thing
if you go get Patrick Kane and you put him in the top 6, who are you bumping out from that roster? Like you're telling me you're going to take Casey Middlestad and bump him down to the bottom 6. That's not where he needs to be.
Nah, I get it.
I'm going to put you full screen again. You read
Ottawa. Oh, man, and we're on to Ottawa. So, yeah. Moving on to Ottawa, we'll talk more about the Sabres and how much Dan and I both love them for this coming season. But so Ottawa was 6th in the Atlantic last year, 39, 35, and 8. Good enough for 86 points. They obviously did not qualify for the playoffs, even though last year they were kind of a sleeper team. I mean, they signed Alex DeBrincat. They brought in Claude Giroux. I will admit that, and at the time too, that was just somebody like, I admit I might have bought a little bit into their stock last year too. I think I picked them to maybe sneak into the playoffs a little bit, maybe pull a Florida and just barely backdoor their way in, not to make much noise like Florida did, and they didn't do that. They let down. The Senators let down a little bit, but now I'll lead into Dan, who is now done dying.
I'm trying. I have been fighting a cold for the last week. I was struggling through the last week's show.
Is it the Rona?
It's not the Rona.
It's not the Rona. That's good.
It has been a really, really bad cough for the last week or so. And I'm surprised it wasn't an issue on last week's show. So hopefully this is the only show where this is an issue for a while.
I love talking. So if you got to choke again, it's all good.
Go for it. But I think the move to North Carolina where you get all the new pollen, like allergies have been brutal.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that's what it is between that and like just the being exhausted from the move.
You're close to the Atlantic.
Close-ish.
Your state
I'm
literally
is Cincinnati, closer than Chicago. But I'm not closer to water than Chicago, though. I'll tell you that for nothing.
You're not. I'm looking at water out my window right now. I was setting you up though because I brought up the whole summary of the Senators, how they did last year.
Mm-hmm.
Now under new ownership, finally.
Yes.
So what does that do for them this year?
Well, the biggest thing is apparently that it traded Alex DeBrincat within the division, which I don't know. And we brought this up on the show at the time of the trade. It's almost like they lost the DeBrincat trade twice because with what they gave up to Chicago was a lot. Didn't get a ton of production, and part of that I think was more on the system than on the player. DeBrincat wasn't really in a good position to be successful in Ottawa, and it looked like a loss trading him to Detroit on the cheap, knowing that he wanted out and knowing that you weren't going to lock him up to a long-term deal. So that in mind,
27 goals and 39 assists for 66 points last year.
Which still not a bad season by any stretch, but
DeBrincat is no slouch.
That you're expecting more in the 80 to 90 range, maybe more than that. You're expecting roughly a point per game pace from DeBrincat from what we've seen him do in the past and what we think he can be.
And not to mention that, if I am not mistaken, is his lowest goal count in his career. Oh, nope, I'm sorry. And nope, 29. Well, okay. 2019-20 was.
If you take out the COVID year too.
Take the COVID because he finished that year.
Shorts the schedule.
He finished that year with 18 goals. So take that out, then yes, that was his lowest point last year with 27 goals. Meanwhile, he broke 40 twice in his career, both with the, obviously with the Blackhawks, and then 32. And then 28 his rookie year. The thing is, though, is to your point, a guy like DeBrincat, and I don't want to slight him and say he needs a Patrick Kane. He needs another star player on his line with him just to bump up. Again, his numbers last year were solid, but to get to that, like you said, that low 90s area that he, mid 80s, mid 90s area that he has been used to. I think he really does benefit way more from having another star on his line with him. And he didn't really necessarily have that in Ottawa.
Yeah, there's got to be somebody functioning as a setup guy.
Exactly.
And it's not even necessarily the, a quote unquote star even on his line, just somebody who can help drive the play. Because at the end of the day, like DeBrincat, his job is put the puck in the net.
Yep.
He is not going to be a player who has twice as many assists as he has goals. He's a player who is probably going to have close to the same total, if not more, on the goal scoring side.
Right.
If he ends the game with one shot on goal, you didn't utilize him correctly that game. If he has 5 shots, you're more likely putting him in those positions to succeed. Now, looking at the rest of it, yes, they moved on from DeBrincat, but they did bring in Vladimir Tarasenko, who hopefully finally healthy.
That's pretty solid.
About as good a replacement. Yeah, about as good a replacement as you were going to get. Yep. Just based on who was available. Ottawa also lost Cam Talbot, but upgraded in net with Joonas Korpisalo.
Yep.
Dominic Kubalik and Travis Hamonic in as well for Ottawa.
Dominic Kubalik's got a hell of a shot if he could just hit the net.
Yeah, said the same thing about Bedard after watching that one training video. I'm trying, man. I am trying so hard.
Didn't he just put up a hat trick this weekend on all your prospects? I am trying
so hard to just, for some reason, maybe Bedard doesn't pan out and it blows up in Chicago's face. Maybe Adam Fantilli or Leo Carlson have better careers. I know it's not going to happen.
No, but do you really?
No, it's not.
Do you want that? You don't want another superstar in the league?
Yes, I want that.
Wow.
Well, I'm not actively rooting against Connor Bedard. I am actively rooting against Chicago having another generational talent. That's what I'm rooting against.
Okay. Well, that's at least a much more innocent way of saying it than some of the douchebags you see on Twitter that have come to me saying, yeah, one big hit and he's done. He's a bust. He's never playing again. I'm like, are you literally actively hoping that an 18-year-old kid's career gets ended just because he's not on your team?
Yeah, I'm not rooting for him to end his career. I'm hoping
I know you're not. I'm not saying you are.
Out of the division unless he comes to Minnesota. In which case, back up the Brinks truck. But it's not happening. Okay. It's not happening.
Anywho.
That is an aside.
Yes.
Ottawa, I
the
think
weird thing is they have
progressed
talent
in some ways. Like, I do think Korpisalo is a solid upgrade over Cam Talbot in net. But I look at the rest of their roster. I look at Jake Sanderson getting an 8-year extension with fewer than 82 games played in his career. Mm-hmm. That's a big, big risk. And again, rooting for the guy, but if that doesn't pan out, you're stuck. You're leaning on, is Eric Brandstrom ever going to be the prospect that we thought he might be? Do you get your guys like Shane Pinto and Ridley Grieg? Where are they at? How much longer is Claude Giroux going to be a top 6 level forward? There are a lot of really big questions looming around Ottawa. And outside of their top 3 forwards, and I would say their top pairing of defensemen, there's still a lot about this team that is up in the air and concerning.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. Like you look up and down the roster and you see names that pop out as like they have some talent that are outside of their usual obvious suspects. Like we brought up some of the bigger names like a Tarasenko and such. We got like a Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle pops into mind here. Josh Norris coming up a little bit, right? Also, I just had him. Where is he? Drake Batherson. Like, there's some names that kind of pop off the page. I'm not saying they pop off the page and oh my God, they're incredible. And then obviously on the back end, we don't mention the obvious of Thomas Chabot and Jacob Chikrin. But
Super good pairing.
Exactly. But after that, it's just a lot of question marks. And that isn't good for their depth. And I think that's why we saw kind of an underwhelming performance last year and what probably will also be another kind of mid performance this year.
Mateo with a great question here. Can they sign Pinto? That is a very good question because as of right now, they have $120,000 in cap room. That's not enough. And that's taking into account Josh Norris is on injured reserve and he's actively listed on injured reserve. So that's currently counting towards that. They might not be able to sign Shane Pinto and still have everybody fitting here when he comes back. Because right now, between your 10.7 mil on injured reserve between Norris and Forsberg, Cap Friendly lists them right now with 11 forwards, 7D, and 1 goalie. And that is their cap room.
Yeah.
They're going to have to get a little creative here to get back under the cap. And can they sign Pinto right now? No, they can't. If they wanted to sign him today, they wouldn't be able to do it.
Right.
They've still got to kind of figure something else out there. I do hope they do it. Pinto's a really good player. I think he could be pushing for top 6 minutes before the end of the year. And I think Giroux's spot is one that I'm looking at is that could be up for grabs. And Norris, depending how long he's out, may force Shane Pinto into that top 6. I think Ottawa is still a couple years away from really being like a solid, yes, that is a playoff team. I think they're good enough to be competitive on a nightly basis. And we saw that with more regulation wins than regulation losses last year.
Yeah.
But I still think they're a little too far away. They're what's a good comparison here?
Well, here, while you think of it, Ottawa, we got Mateo again. Ottawa is a team that thinks they're done with the rebuild when in reality they got a long way to go. Even with and that's kind of, you know what? I'm glad he says that because that was kind of my point. Like, even I remember when they added Chychrun, I was like, that's a huge move for them. But
right,
you
and
still
especially pairing him with Shabbat.
Right, and there's your solid 1-2, but you still need more than that.
Yes. They have
it's not enough.
One line of forwards and one line of defense who truly it's like, yes, that is a line, and that's a line you can build around. You're
not going to keep them out there for 40 minutes a game.
And their second pairing, like Artem Zub is a good defenseman as well. Not great, but a reasonable middle pairing defenseman. But that alone isn't enough. Looking at what you're up against in this division, Ottawa isn't there right now.
Dan, on that note, before we get on, are you a black bean or pinto bean guy?
Of course, you would go there.
I'm mad.
But when I do get a Chipotle burrito, it's the pinto.
It's all about the black beans, man. All right, move on.
It depends. You 99% of the time I'll go pinto.
Shane Pinto.
Moving on. Detroit Red Wings. 80 points last season. Also did not qualify for the playoffs. We talked about DeBrincat, so we're not going to go and not rehash everything there.
He was their biggest addition. I think we all know that. He was one of the biggest, one of the most sought after additions of the offseason.
Yep. And not only that, but then also brought in Alex Lyon.
Yep.
Again, Detroit continuing with the theme of poaching players from division rivals. Added Shane Gostisbehere, added Jeff Petrie. You mentioned Artem Anisimov on a PTO.
That's hilarious to me.
But they did lose out on Kubalik. Pius Suter is gone. Nedeljkovic is gone. And Philip Zadina out the door as well, which I feel bad for Zadina. He was probably overdrafted in his draft year, came in with some absurdly high expectations, and then things just kind of fell flat.
Yeah.
As far as his development goes, he's in San Jose now, he should have every opportunity to play top 6 minutes for San Jose next year. See if he can get things back on track. But Detroit, my question that I had written down for you here, Joel, is I have seen them draft some really, really good players over the last couple of years who are still a year or two away.
Yeah.
They have their future goaltending tandem with Sebastian Cossa and Trey Augustine. Cossa is probably another year away from the NHL. Augustine is probably 3 or 4, but those are 2 really high-level goaltending prospects. They have Edvinsson. They have William Wallinder. They have a ton of talent who is, as we said, maybe 2 or 3 years out. At what point do Red Wings fans get impatient with the lack of playoff performances and even appearances for that regard and abandon the Iser plan?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I would say this year. I think this year, if you we've been for the past 2 years, Detroit is finally ready to earn that badge that lets you remove the rebuilding badge, so to speak. We've said that for the last 2 years, and that has not come to pass.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this year specifically, based on everything you mentioned, based on the talent they do have, they added an Alex DeBrincat. You obviously alluded to it. There's a potential for Patrick Kane to land there. He mentioned he wanted to potentially follow Alex DeBrincat, so there's potential there. Obviously, Dylan Larkin, top 15, top 15, 20 guy in the league. Lucas Ramo. You mentioned they added Jeff Petrie, they added Shane Gostisbehere. Like, there's just not a lot of names going on here where I'm like, all right.
The Gostisbehere could be a sneaky one, though.
It could be, but that ship sailed a long time ago. He had that crazy season where everyone was like, "Who the hell is this kid?" when he was in Philly, and then it just never really kept up. I think you got to look at this year. If this year, like they did make some moves, I'd even say even if they do add someone like a caliber of Patrick Kane, and it's not enough. The Iser plan, the man who brought it, who created the Iser plan, is finally going to have to answer for some of this lack of playoff push. I won't even say if they make the playoffs or not. Like, if you're not at least nipping at the heels of a Buffalo or, these teams that are going to be voting for maybe wild card spots and such, he's gonna have to come out and have some answers, man. Like, I don't think they're gonna, I don't know at one point where they say, like, look, I don't think the Iser plan is working. And I think we're gonna find that out, though. I think I think this is gonna be a telling year for Detroit.
I think what it's really going to come down to, as well as the success of all those guys that Yzerman has drafted, where are they at in their development? And can you point to it and say, hey, Edvinsson is tearing up the minors, we need to call him up? Is it now that we have Marco Kasper, where is he playing, and is he playing consistently well? Does Cossa look like he's going to be the guy? Mateo brought up the point of how do you trade up and not get Jesper Wallstedt? Yeah, Wallstedt was the number 1 goaltender in that class until draft night when Cossa took over. Yeah. You need to see that growth there. You need to see Wallinder looking like he's going to be a capable middle pairing, I think is kind of where he's ultimately going to fall defensively.
And as for current roster spots, you need to see if Ville Husso can be the real deal, like he showed he could be.
Right, because that was another one that Yzerman went out in free agency and brought him in.
Yep.
And then lastly here, the Montreal Canadiens. A very busy offseason for Montreal, but mostly kind of acting as a broker for some other moves.
Yep.
But Caulfield, 8-year deal.
Yep.
Keep talking about Montreal or I'm going to cough again.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, Cole Caulfield, they needed to get him signed. They got him. They got it done. Good thing there. I mean, obviously, Nick Suzuki is still proving to be a player. I mean, look, Mateo has a point here. Did they overpay Cole Caulfield? Yeah, and I also saw you and him having a little bit of fun throwing in there that Matt Boldy is arguably better than a Cole Caulfield, right? But yeah, look, Montreal. I don't really know what to say, man. They've been in rebuild mode for a little while, and it almost seems like it almost feels like it was a decade ago that they were fighting in the Stanley Cup Final, ultimately losing. But it's just how they fell and how they've just stayed in the basement. I would argue, yeah. I mean, like they didn't really do that much. They brought in names like Alex Newhook, Casey DeSmith.
I like that Newhook one if he is able to consistently get minutes.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't in Colorado, but
right,
the talent is there.
Yeah, exactly. And, they got, like we talked about, they got their young players going, Suzuki, Cole Caulfield. They got their D-men and Caden Goulet and Jordan Harris. You're clearly starting to form a little bit of a nucleus, but they're still just like they just got a long way to go. I mean, there's really no other way to say it. I mean, they're 31-45-6 last year, eighth in the Atlantic, 68 points. They were fighting for a spot at Bedard. Ultimately, who did they draft again?
This year?
Yeah.
They took David Reinbacher.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, that was one of the two I actually got right in our mock draft.
Yeah, and apparently Montreal fans absolutely hated that move, which you need defensemen, you need good defensemen, you needed Reinbacher. It's a good
the fans of Montreal.
They were
delusional.
They were mad it wasn't Michkov, who Reinbacher will be in the NHL before Michkov. And Michkov does not make you a playoff team next year because he's not going to be here.
Not to mention, you could use a budding star on the back end because
you could use
who else you got?
Yeah.
Who else you got?
And not just that, but in the system as well, because
that's what I'm saying.
It goes beyond. Yeah, it goes beyond who's there now. It's who do you have on the way as well. That defense pool. I mean, Arbor Jakai, who should be there. It's thin after that.
And it's like you said, it's mostly just in the system. Like hell, I see our failed experiment in Nicholas Beaudin. I mean, we were in Chicago. We were very excited to see what would happen there, and he was kind of the last to. Well, it was kind of him and Ian Mitchell who were like the last two of the kind of the he who shall not be named here era of drafts, trying to see if they could really become something, and it just never came to fruition. Maybe Beaudin can develop to be one of those top 4 D-men that we were hoping he might ultimately become here, but I never saw it here. Nothing really ever impressed me personally here when he was here. So you're right. I mean, they needed a star, or at least a potential star in the system, especially on the back end.
I think the other big issue is with Carey Price retiring before Montreal, I think, was ready for him to retire. I mean, and we knew Price was done from that playoff run. He left everything on the ice. Montreal did not have adequately prepared development for that. So all of a sudden, Jake Allen is your starter and Sam Montembeault is up because he has to be. And whether or not that ruined his development or gave him a chance to be better, hard to say. I think it hurt more than it helped. But when you have an all-world goaltender like Carey Price and then have to go to Jake Allen, who, while a good goaltender, is not a Carey Price level goaltender.
I agree with Mateo here.
Montreal wasted Carey Price. Hey, you know what? The Wild could have had him, but they decided they wanted Benoit Pouliot instead. Just a reminder to trigger all the Wild fans who may be watching.
All right, let's rank them, Dan.
Let's get to it. Let's get to these standings predictions. Joel, I'll have you read them first.
All right. So, ultimately, in the year 2023-2024 season, I have in the Atlantic Division the Toronto Maple Leafs taking first. Like I said, I love their additions compared to the rest of their division. I think that they added the most while also subtracting quite a bit. They were at least able to recover on that front. I think it's kind of their final push, and I think that final push will work, at least in the regular season. Playoffs, we'll see. Second, I have the Florida Panthers. This is where Dan and I deferred. I really think Florida's going to build on that Cinderella story that they were in the playoffs last year. And I think they'll maybe not get hot out of the gate with the, having to get healthy, but I think they added enough, especially on the blue line, to make up for Ekblad recovering and also the shorter term of Montour recovering too. Then third, I have Tampa Bay because it's Tampa Bay. I'm not even going to spend that much time on them. They are still damn good. They could take first, they could take second, they could take third, but I don't think they go any lower than third, to be honest with you. And then four, the boys I'm riding with, the Sabres, take fourth in the division, and they absolutely make it into the playoffs. Wildcard 1 or 2, we'll see. I definitely could see it being wildcard 1, and quite frankly, I could see them hitting 3. But ultimately, they have to prove the hype. They showed their breakout last year. Now they got to build on that breakout and prove that the hype we have for them is true. So that's why I do have them at 4. Then I think I'm going to be right about it this time. 5th, I have the Boston Bruins, and I have them missing the playoffs. We talked about it. They removed way too much and didn't add nearly enough back. They still have their superstars. I can't bet against them too hard, and that's why I ultimately put them at 5. I think they do miss the playoffs. And then 6, we have the Ottawa Senators, kind of just middled. 7th, I have the Detroit Red Wings. I have a little faith in them, but I just don't think it's going to come to fruition. And then obviously 8th, I have the Montreal Canadiens again.
I agree with you. Montreal at 8. They're the clear 8 in the division. Yeah. And I agree with you on number 1. I think this is Toronto's division next year. But again, that's assuming that Toronto does things right. If they get the Nylander situation figured out, if their goaltenders stay healthy, that's the biggest thing there. For me, It was a toss-up between who gets home ice in that playoff series between Tampa Bay and Buffalo. Yep. I did go with Tampa Bay only because of Andrei Vasilevsky. I think the more proven goaltending plays out there. I would not be surprised if Buffalo ends up at the 2 spot with a better regular season record, but then maybe it falls in the playoffs if that's how the first round series matches up. Again, just the experience factor of Tampa Bay versus Buffalo, who's trying to make the playoffs for the first time in 13 years.
Yep.
Florida at 4, again, I think that slower start could potentially linger into the season. Boston at 5, we agree there. Also have Boston out of the playoffs this year, which is, imagine telling someone, April of last year that Boston was not going to make it out of the first round and they were going to miss the playoffs the following year.
And half their team was going to retire
they probably knew some guys were going to be gone and not coming back, but that first round exit, I think, really was a nail in the coffin in a lot of ways for the Bruins' success over the next couple of years. Went with Detroit at 6. I think on the whole, they're a better team than Ottawa. Ottawa, to me, has a little bit better star power overall. But if I'm looking at overall roster depth, I went with Detroit at 6, Ottawa 7, and then Montreal at 8. So that is our standings predictions. We want to hear from you, everybody listening, watching, however you are keeping up with us. Let us know what you think of these predictions. Are they great? Do they suck? What does your standings prediction look like? Let us know. We take all the feedback and we appreciate it. We comment on it. We reply to
Fight me.
pretty much everything here. Yeah, fight Joel.
Fight me.
Fight me. See what happens.
See what happens.
But Joel, that is it for tonight's show. We'll put Mateo's up here quick. He went Lightning 1, Sabres 2, Bruins 3, Florida 4, Toronto 5, Ottawa 6, Detroit 7. At least we all three of us agreed Montreal at 8.
I mean, it's kind of hard to not agree with that. There's just nothing there.
And again, can they be competitive? Sure.
Yeah, I'm not going to.
Are they going to win some games? Sure.
Yeah,
but
I'm not going to sit here and say they're competing for a lottery spot.
I
would be, I guess.
I think I think they're far closer to being a top 5 pick contender than they are to being one of the last 2 or 3 teams out of that playoff bubble.
Yep.
They're still going to be entertaining to watch. We're not like completely writing them off. Like, I mean, I feel bad. San Jose is going to be really, really bad this year.
San Jose is getting first overall.
They're probably in that spot.
Yeah.
Montreal isn't going to be as bad as San Jose. I think they're a better team on paper to me than, say, Philadelphia.
I could see them picking. They picked 5th overall, right?
They picked 5th.
Yeah, I could see them right back there again.
Yeah,
maybe 6th.
Entirely possible because Columbus going to be better. I look at the teams who picked ahead of them. Chicago.
We went through this entire episode without talking about the debacle in Columbus.
Oh, God, yeah. We didn't even get to talk about Columbus hiring and firing a coach before the season.
He resigned.
After the end of one season and before the start.
Yeah, well, maybe you should have realized that was a stupid move. Anyway.
Yeah, Mateo's learned best odds don't mean much.
True. But true. And speaking of that, Dan, we have one more division to preview, and that is our own. Next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 o'clock Eastern, our Central Division preview.
So here's how this is going to go. We'll do our Central Division show next week.
Mm-hmm.
The following week, we will be off. The week after that, we will do a Monday show for our season preview because that Tuesday is opening night.
Yes, it is.
We are that close to the start of the season. You can taste it. It is almost here. And we
3 weeks exactly away.
We are going to have a really fun show next week, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. The preview show is going to be incredible. Expect a long show for
expect to get some gambling talk going on that show.
Yep. That's going to happen as well. Some season bets, some season predictions. But that's it for tonight. So thank you to everybody who tuned in. Thank you to everybody who commented throughout the show. Joey, Mateo, really appreciate all your comments in here as well.
Of course.
Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow. We are on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Facebook. Also, give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. Wherever you're listening to your podcast, we got to get those ratings up.
You know what? I'm not even going to be greedy. You can give a 4-star if you want.
But please, a 5.
Please, 5.
If you can find it in your heart to give us a 5, we would appreciate a 5.
If it's a 4, just tell us why, and if it's because of me, well, too bad.
we'll burn that bridge when we get to it. But that is it for tonight's show. So thank you everybody for watching. He's Joel. I'm Dan. Enjoy the rest of your night, everybody.
Bye.